Healing Through Your Story. I'm Leslie Karen Hammond, your hostess, also known as the Empowering Story Whisperer. So welcome this evening. This topic is a doozy. How to find the wisdom in surrender. So the goal for you through this little bit of time that we're going to spend together is for you to take a look at the term surrender in a slightly different way that you may be interpreting that word now. So I'm curious, when you hear the word surrender, when you read the word, or even think it for that matter, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Is it weakness? Is it apathy? Is it giving up? Every one of you I know has a story around the word surrender. And so many times the story that's attached to that word is what gets in the way when there's an opportunity or an invitation to surrender to something. So along that line of what does surrender mean, there are two opposing things I want to throw out at you and take it for what it's worth. So the first opportunity to surrender might be, now if you're not playing in the personal development sandbox yet, well, this may be a little bit of a shock to you, but what if the word surrender meant letting go of an ego-driven need to be right? If you would have said that to me a couple of years ago, ooh, the hairs on the back of my neck would have went up and I would not have been a happy camper. I would have been, what are you talking about? Ego? I don't think so. Well, I'm sure every one of you at some point in your life has gone into defense mode and had a need to be right about something. And when in that state, that is the most unlikely time for you to surrender, because all flags are up and it's, like even the whole body takes on this rigidity and this stress that wasn't there before. So the ego tends to hop on the self-defense bandwagon and just throw up all kinds of red lights and red flags because there's some kind of a safety in being right for some people. Been there. Heck, there's still times when I feel that way. Hey there, thanks for joining, Wendy. So that need to be right, I gotta tell you, okay, in complete transparency here, there are still times when that comes up, but the good thing is there's a shorter and shorter period of time for when I actually stay in that mindset of having to be right. So it's kind of like eating crow. How much salt do you like on it to make it palatable? So when I recognize that behavior, which comes faster and faster, then I can see like, oh, I was being an idiot. And I'll say that to whoever, usually it's my husband that gets who is the receiver of all these wonderful gifts, ha ha ha. But there comes a point when you could call it surrender, you could call it wisdom, but there gets to be a point when there's a realization that one doesn't need to be right, that being right doesn't matter so much. There's a confidence in oneself when you can let someone else go through their own process and let them, if they need to feel right, well, then let them feel right, even if they're wrong. There'll never be a shortage of opportunities for that to happen in families. It's just wherever people are on that personal growth line. So if you are someone who is waking up and you're more conscious and more aware of all of these different kinds of mannerisms, these the need to be in control or the need to be right, the need to the need to really get on a soapbox about that, Well, eventually over time, you'll notice that the ego doesn't need to take over in such a big way, and it doesn't need to be so prevalent, and that you've come to a certain point in your process, but maybe the other folks that you spend most of your time with, maybe they haven't caught up to you yet for where they are in their process. So there'll always be this dance of where different people are at along their progression in self-development. So when it comes to surrender, there's a lot of different ways that you can look at it. So that was the really like the ego-based version of needing to be right and the resistance to surrender, because sometimes that's just where we feel safe. When we think we know something, that tends to be like foundational in our existence, when we have to hold on to that, otherwise we feel like we're going to lose it and just kind of go insane. Sometimes it's okay to surrender to the fact that, you know what, I could be wrong. Maybe there's another point of view I don't understand here. Maybe I was misinformed at some point down the road, but I've been believing this story the whole time. So there's a whole lot that the ego has to do with your ability to surrender or not to surrender. So on the one extreme, we've got the ego side of it. And then on the other end, and this may feel a little more comfortable for those of you who've been, maybe you got your toe in the water in that development phase, in that growth phase. So here's something that's a little more palatable. What happens when you're inconvenienced? That's a great way to start learning how to surrender in situations that you're uncomfortable or inconvenienced. How so? Traffic. Who hasn't ever got stuck in traffic? And there isn't anything that can be done about it. Let's see. Very empowering to see the views of others and respect them. Oh yes. Yes, indeed it is. And we'll swing back to that. So the term surrender, if you can play with the little easy things, then you'll get more comfortable and you'll build that foundation of success to be able to surrender to some of the bigger things, like appreciating another person's point of view when it goes against everything that you believe in. So small little things. Now, one of my all-time favorites, and maybe it's one of your favorites. I say that tongue-in-cheek, but when you're doing the work, quote unquote, you're diving into the things that you feel drawn to, and you begin to shed a lot of those layers of the past that have been uncomfortable, and maybe you just haven't wanted to go there. Well, over time, once you get into that practice, I mean, I've been in that practice for darn near 20 years now, but there comes a point when there's this acknowledgement, and I like to refer to this as an ultimate surrender of, okay, I know I signed up for this long, long ago. I made an agreement, I made a commitment to Source, to Spirit, God, whatever term works for you. So I made this commitment that I would do the work. And a lot of times when it gets difficult, that's when I really have to throw my hands up in the air and just say, okay, I surrender, I get it. And usually what forces me to get to that point, and I suspect this may be the case for you too, but what forces that response is the ego fueling my resistance to doing the work. Sound familiar? Resistance. Where does that come from? That awful three-letter word, ego. So if I don't surrender, and maybe this happens to you, if you don't surrender to like doing the work and you really fight it and resist it, it may go away for a little while, but ultimately the invitation is going to keep circling back around, and you're going to keep getting that knock on the door, and at some point you will need to address whatever's going on. There is an energetic resonance that occurs in the body's energy field. There's an imprint that is made, and if left unattended, any type of a negative imprint from a stressor, from something that you were fighting, from any kind of a traumatic or dramatic experience, that will stay seated in the energy field. And no matter how much surrendering you decide to do to the process, you'll need help getting that cleared. So when you build the series of successes, learning how to surrender to the little things, you'll find that you're able to let all kinds of stuff just not get under your skin. So the traffic example is terrific. If you ever get stuck on a bridge or a construction site or wherever it is and you're in traffic and you have two choices. One, you can say, okay, I'm stuck here, there's nothing I can do about it. I've got a helicopter that can come in, pick up my car and take me wherever I want to be. Make the best use of the time possible. This is a great opportunity to carry a notebook or to use the audio recording portion of your phone. Make good use of the time. What's your other alternative? Sit there and start laying on the horn. I think everybody's been stuck in traffic where there is a person or multiple people that just start laying on the horn. So there's, when you experience that, there's a person there who is very stressed out, a person who has a strong desire to control a situation. They can't control it, so they're really upset about it. And the only way they know how to do anything about it is to get into reaction mode. And the one thing I can guarantee reaction mode will do for you is to increase your blood pressure and your stress levels. The simple act of gently surrendering to little things out of your control will ultimately help you be a healthier person, because stress has a way of hiding in all kinds of places in the body. And it may take a long time for it to show up and manifest in a physical form, but ultimately it will. Once you get really good at letting those little tiny things just go, and even call it a little forgiveness if that makes a difference, because if you think you let something go but you still have an energetic attachment to it, then it can still be a stressor. But ultimately this all comes back around to building a muscle for knowing when it's time to surrender to a process. Perfect case in point. Right now I'm in the midst of a major detox, and it's got to do with major dietary changes, as in the elimination of gluten, of eggs, of dairy, of sugar, and today's been a meat-free day, but it's a lot. And I could have said, I don't care, not doing it, or I could have been kicking and screaming. And initially, I surrendered to the fact that this was a necessary thing for me to do in order to get my optimal amount of energy back. But here's the thing. Instead of just kind of like laying back and saying, you know what, done, I was able to take it and turn it around and really get proactive with it. So here's something for you to think about. When it's time for you to surrender to something, what can you do to take some really specific actions so that it turns into something very powerful that you can take with you from this point forward as a new practice or something new that you incorporate into your everyday. So one thing that I would love to share with you, if this is the first time that you've caught this, and you may not realize that every week there is a worksheet that accompanies this training. So this week It's called 3 Secrets on How to Go with the Flow. So I invite you to go check that out. If you go to LeslieKarenHammond.com/14 Go with the Flow, then you'll get this sheet with these 3 secrets on how to more easily go with the flow. Now, one of the areas it's probably most difficult for us to surrender to something that is completely out of our control is when it comes to family members and people that we love, when we see something they don't. When we have a suggestion that falls on deaf ears. When we have absolutely no control. So here's a tip for when you have that kind of a circumstance. So first of all, there's definitely, above all else, a surrender to the fact that you can't change anyone else. All you can do is work on you. And I mean, that's for any of you who have been in yourself or know others who have been in any kind of a 12-step recovery program. That's one of the very first things that they teach you, is that you cannot change someone else. The person has to be willing to change on their own. It needs to be for them, not for you. So here's something that you can do. I like to refer to this as like holding space or saying a prayer, whatever works, whatever's more comfortable for you. But once you turn over this desire or this need to shake somebody, like I'm like shaking here, to shake somebody up so that they can see things in a different way, see things in a new light, have their epiphany so that they can start their own healing process. Well, until that happens, the best thing that you can do is to surrender to the fact that it'll happen in their own time. But I am such a huge advocate of saying a prayer for their highest good. Now, you can consider that healing, or you can consider that something that would help them. I wouldn't confuse it with curing. Curing and healing are two very different things. But if you find that you incorporate this person or these people into your prayers on a regular basis and you're still feeling like there's more that you can do, well, here's another thing that I've enjoyed doing before, and you may enjoy it too. Now, every person has what I like to call an energetic twin. It's a part of them that lives in these upper realms. It is a piece of you that is in the most purest form possible. It's essentially energetic, purely energetic in nature. There's no ego, it's only love. Now, if prayer alone doesn't feel fulfilling enough for you, then I invite you to evoke your higher self, this energetic twin of yours. Evoke this higher self to speak to the higher self of the other person. It's pretty similar to, just letting God take care of it, or spirit, or source, but then kind of up-leveling the game a little bit. So you're saying your prayers on their behalf, and then you can also evoke a conversation from your higher self, from that place of unconditional love, and have that self communicate with the self, the higher self of the other person, because there's a piece of them, there's a piece of every one of you, everyone on this planet that has this higher vibrating energetic self that is the essence of infinity, of purity, of love. And can you imagine how profound it would be to have two forces of unconditional love in communication. How beautiful. What an absolutely extraordinary thing. So surrender. What is it that you might surrender to? Is it the fact that, hey, maybe if you're gainfully employed, that it could be another 6 months before you go off on your own and start your own business? Maybe that's something to surrender to. If that is the case for you, and you feel like you must surrender, then once you do, then take all of that energy that you have and focus for the next 6 months into doing everything you can to prepare for this launch or this stepping into business. So the word surrender, when looked at from or felt from a very positive perspective, and all negativity, all draining energy or emotion is removed from that, and you can look at the word as a door opening for possibility. It can change everything, absolutely everything. Oh, I'm so grateful that you took the time out of your evening to watch this, or if you're catching it on the replay, thank you so much. I would invite you to get the accompanying gift that goes with this episode, which is 3 secrets on how to go with the flow. Who doesn't need to be a little bit more chill and learn how to go with the flow more? So if that's of interest to you, go to LeslieKarenHammond.com/14 Go with the flow. Pretty simple. 14, go with the flow. And I would ask if this video was of help to you, I would love it. I would be so grateful if you shared it with someone else. And also if you shared this page, Healing Through Your Story. And if you haven't had a chance to like the page yet, then by all means, please like it. And there's also a little drop down where you can click to get future notifications of all kinds of cool stuff, because I've got some very cool stuff coming up in the next week, and I've got some really awesome some really awesome training videos, brand new stuff I have not put out there before. So if that's anything you'd like to be a part of, leave me a message so that I can send you an email that'll have this information in it, because I'm super excited about it, and it is coming from a place of service and from the guidance above. So lots of love and light to you. All the best on your journey of finding the wisdom in surrender, because to know when it's time to put the ego in check, or when it's time to just let go and forgive, or when it's time to take that surrender to a whole new level and get really aggressive with what it is that you're tackling. So in the case of my story earlier with fasting and with changing diet, then by all means do so. Find ways to get creative and turn surrender into a regular practice, because you have a big mission. You are here for a very specific reason. You have love and light to share with the world, and I am here to support you in that journey. So many blessings. Thanks so much for coming. Lots of love and light. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.